Kia ora tātou, and welcome to this additional council meeting of the 27th of May, where we will be deciding on the future of our water services delivery. An additional council meeting is being called so that we can make this decision in a timely manner, so that we can meet central government timelines in terms of the development of our water services delivery model. So I'll ask Kim Tahiwi to either do a council blessing or to karakia.
Mari ora ki te whare, tēnā ra koutou katoa, me karakia tātou. Ia mātou e whiriwhiri ana e ngā take kai mua i o mātou aro, e pono ana mātou ka kaha tonu ki te whakapau māhara huapai mō ngā hāpiri e mahi nei mātou, me kaha hoki mātou katoa kia whaihua, kia tōtika kia mātou mahi, mā te maia te tiro whakamua me te hihiri, ka taia te arahi i roto i te kotahitanga, me te aroha.
Kia ora. I'll just note before we go on to apologies that we have Jocelyn, Councillor Pravanov, Community Board Chair Glenn Olsen, and Ngāti Toa Hura Waipaki online.
And aroha mai, just to note, Councillor Coford is sending his apologies for lateness. I just got a text from him now.
Okay.
So he should be here soon.
So do we move and second an apology for lateness then for Councillor Coford? Do we have any further apologies? Yeah, on behalf of all late people, Nigel Wilson will be moving the apology for lateness. Seconded by Councillor Handford. All in favour, please say aye. Aye, that's carried. Any declarations of interest? We have no public speakers today. I'm guessing that's because we heard very clearly from everybody during our consultation process, and everybody feels like they've been able to input into this decision in a meaningful way. So we move on to members' business. Leaves of absence can be communicated to my office. I haven't heard of any matters of an urgent nature, so we move on to reports. And we have one report on our agenda today, which is our local Water Done Well delivery model, and I'll pass on to Sean. Thank you.
Morning to everybody. So I'll hand straight over to Martin actually, and he can do a bit of an intro and take you through some of the things that may have changed since we last talked to you with regard to this decision. Martin, Cole?
Okay. Morning all. I just looking at this decision today, and it's been a year in the making since Kapiti started working with Wellington Water exploring options, and the paper outlines the results of the consultation and puts a recommendation in terms of a preferred water services model for you to consider. So just on that 1 year journey, you've gone through a number of options, discounted a number of options, exploring lots of different opportunities with Wellington region, Horowhenua, and also looking at consumer trusts and other models. So there's been quite a bit of work to get to today, and the decision that's before you today. In that time, the new legislation came into place in September, which required all water services providers to put a water service delivery plan in place and consult on the options for the model for that. Kapiti consulted on the two options, as you know, the in-house business model, the preferred option, and an option 2 with four council option of Palmerston North, Horowhenua, Manawatu and Kapiti. That consultation was from 10th of March through to 13th of April. And the results came in, and we'll give you an update on those final results. And just to say that the preferred option was option 1 because it's financial sustainability. It met 5 of the 6 priorities that you'd identified for the future of water services, and it also presented the lowest average cost in the short to medium term. From the consultation, the results strongly in support of option 1, with 94% of submitters supporting option 1. There were also feedback comments and 182 positive comments or comments in support of option 1, with 5 concerns against it. And for option 2, there were 6% of responders had a preference for option 2, with 16 comments and feedbacks in support, and 125 concerns registered against that. In addition, iwi through Te Whakaminenga o Kapiti have confirmed their support for option 1. So with mana whenua backing. Other points, recently Manawatu decided or resolved to retain an in-house business unit. So the option of the 4 goes down to the 3, which actually becomes a higher average cost again for that option as Manawatu step out and progress with their internal business unit process. What else do we have in there? There also has been confirmed by the Minister Watt that there's no intention to give extensions to the 3rd of September deadline. So there was some consideration of exploring the 4 council, now 3 council option further. That timeline has now been compressed into the 3rd of September. So in terms of a potential option for a favourable outcome for Kapiti, where there would be a lower cost option in there by maintaining differentials in pricing, that gets more complex, and the timelines are firmly fixed from the Minister in terms of the 3rd of September deadline, making that the availability of that option effectively unavailable at this time. So no extensions, 1 or 2. That was really the updates since the last briefing. The rest is in the paper here. It puts together a recommendation for proceeding with an internal business unit with modifications, and then proceeding to prepare a water service delivery plan with that model in place, and having that to the Department of Internal Affairs for their deadline of 3rd of September.
Thank you, Martin. I appreciate the work that's gone in by you and the team. Really outstanding piece of work, and we're able to also noting that we're able to come with this option in part because of the work that was done some years ago by you and the team as well around installation of water meters and giving us the water services that we have. So acknowledging your work, not just in this piece of work, but over the years for this council. Thank you, Martin. Do I have any questions from the table? Nigel?
Just want to move it. No
I was thinking
questions?
of moving it, but I'll let you.
No, you
I
go.
will second it.
You go.
No, I'll move that from the chair and seconded by Councillor Wilson. Thank you. I just think this is a really important decision for our council, and I have a few words I'd like to say in introduction, if that's all right. So, particularly because I've been involved in the whole process of exploring different models when it comes to this decision. So I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, the work that was done with the Wellington region and Kerry Prendergast chairing a very effective committee to have a look at what that option looked like for the various options around the Wellington region. The Wairarapa peeled off first, then Horowhenua, then us. And I wish Wellington all the best with the service delivery that they're proposing, which makes sense because it aligns with the previous Wellington Water geographical boundary. That clearly wasn't palatable for us in terms of the infrastructure deficit and the potential for our priorities to be lost in that model. So the second council that I'd like to really acknowledge is Palmerston North. Grant Smith, the Mayor, has led a really incredible process to really dig into what that option looks like, which was why we were able to go out with a really solid second option. Even though this is our preferred option, we were able to present to the community what really is a very viable option, and one which could be explored in the future. So I hope that work has not been in vain, and that we'll be able to find ways to consolidate into a larger water entity should that present us with the economies of scale which are possible under a larger entity. And Horowhenua, of course, our dear friends to the north were part of that as well. And we look forward to continuing with our joint procurement and achieving those economies of scale in a more informal, if you like, way. So the other thing is that legislation is not concrete. As we know, it can change. So it's really good to have a larger option up our sleeve should the legislation change in the future and require us to enter into those larger entities. So it's been really important to do that work and find that option. And I'd like to acknowledge elected members for travelling north as far as Palmerston North. We had a really good turnout to really look seriously at that option, because we need to make sure that we have all the information in front of us when we make what probably is the biggest decision we'll make as a council. So with that, does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I just want to, what you said, just to say that, the gestation period of this has actually been a lot longer than what a lot of people think. You know, it's been going on for quite a long time. The fact that 94% identified option 1 as the sensible option have made sense. We did come in for some criticism about the number of options that were presented. Just in response to that, the options that we did put up, it wasn't like a straw man argument. There were a whole bunch of considerations given to a whole bunch of options. It was just when it came to presenting them, we presented the sensible ones. And I thought the fact that Manawatu dived out first in terms of the 4, then becoming a 3, made the case even worse for us. So considering any other options at this stage, it was just like chasing rainbows. There is very little point in it. It's not like the homework hasn't been done, it has. So I think we've arrived at the most sensible solution. And yes, so Martin and Sean and your guys, I think you've presented us with a really good option that I've got faith in. So happy to support it.
Great. Councillor Coe.
Look, I just want to say that this is absolutely the lowest risk and most cost-effective option for Kapiti right now. We know that we have one of the most cost-effective water departments, if you like. We're one of the most cost-effective providers of 3 waters in the Wellington region. So we don't have a compelling reason to change what we're doing. We should be celebrating our success in that area. We're well positioned. We don't require any sort of significant amounts of capital for about 20 years or so. So I think, and I have yet to see, as I said on a number of occasions previously, I've yet to see evidence of economies of scale with regard to 3 waters. That's something we can look at as we move further down the track, and if the other councils improve their efficiency, and if we can see there are economies of scale, then we can take action to, participate in those gains. So I think really I see no compelling evidence to do anything other than have an internal business unit for 3 waters. Any cost savings that there might be in the long term, have a huge amount of risk associated with them. We don't know what's happening in the long term. We don't know that those estimated cost savings in the long term are going to actually eventuate. It's a lot of water to go under the bridge. So let's stick with what we know. We're operating really well, and so there's no reason to change anything at all at this point. So I'll be voting in favour of the motion. Thank you.
David Shand.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of questions. First of all, the costs have to be ring-fenced, whatever happens, right, into the entity. I'm just curious, how broadly is that defined? I mean, to what extent are we talking about some share of council overheads or so on being included in costs? That's quite an important issue, I think. The devil is in the detail in that sort of sense. And also related to that, does that in any way affect the decision that's been made to change the way that water is billed in Kapiti, separating out the fixed charge from the user charge into one to go into the rate statement, the other to go into the water charge bill, right? That's my first question. Second point, the condition of our water infrastructure is, oops, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. I knew this would happen. Beg your
No,
pardon.
your time's not up, don't
May I
worry.
continue? I beg your pardon. Anyway, the question of the condition of our water infrastructure, which is set out on page 116. I think, by the way, we're very fortunate to have the quality of analytical and engineering advice we do have in Kapiti Council, which is in marked contrast to some other councils, I might say. But my question really is, looking at page 116, our water services are in reasonable shape. And when you read it, I think we need to be careful not to be the victims of our own propaganda, if I can put it that way. There are probably a number of things we need to do, and I guess my question really is, if our water services are in reasonable shape, what sort of shape is likely to be required by the plan in terms of service delivery or whatever else? I mean, we know that we've got forecasts of our capex and water and all that sort of thing, but one might query why our leakage is so high, which it actually is. So my question is really, what would good shape look like, and what are the implications of that for this council? Insofar as we know what good shape, as opposed to reasonable shape, would look like.
That's probably a question for you, Sean.
Yeah, so the first question there was around the ring fencing.
Yeah.
And yes, it will include, or you will need to provide a breakdown of your allocation of overheads across the organisation that relate to Three Waters. So, which is, we do that currently for the way that we account for costs, but it will need to be more transparent and auditable in terms of if there is half a person in rates, say, that's responsible for water billing, then you'll have to make sure you're allocating the relevant percentage of overhead back to water, and that will be subject to audit by the Commerce Commission. So, I think that was the first question. Was it?
Well, and addendum to that
water.
was the splitting of the water
Yes.
bill that is proposed, right?
Yes. So no, that won't. That doesn't have any impact in terms of how we allocate or recover those costs. It's more about the billing process and making it more transparent in terms of people getting that water fixed charge on the same account as they do for the same bill as they do for the rates, and it just makes it easier for us from an internal process to do it that way rather than the way we've been doing it previously, which was a separate bill for fixed and then a separate one for volumetric. So it doesn't have any impact in terms of where we're heading with the internal business unit and the requirements under the legislation. And the other question about what does good look like is so part of this is also going to be the Commerce Commission looking at benchmarking information across the sector, and there are a number of metrics, water leaks, bursts, and this is one of the things that the Wellington Water, the Southern model, looked at as an indicator in terms of performance. The number of bursts you have on your network can be used as a measure of the condition of that network, because water's obviously very hard to put a camera down and have a look at the condition of those pipes. So you use age, condition based on failure rates to give you a metric per kilometre per diameter of pipe. So there are a number of those factors out there internationally also. The UK and Australia have benchmarks in there in terms of condition, water loss, leakage, and there's quite an extensive structure to infrastructure leakage index is a measure that's used internationally, and I expect that'll be part of the what's locked in by the Commerce Commission when they get through this next stage of legislation and then start pulling together how they're going to be doing that. So we don't actually know exactly what they're going to do, but we've been given indication that it will be based on international best practice and then a whole lot of industry standards in terms of performance monitoring. I think that's anything else, Martin? Wastewater, you can use cameras to condition assess gravity systems. So, and again, there's a established metric in terms of the condition of your pipes and your how you rate them. But it's also going to be linked to the rate of investment that you're projecting. That's a big part of it, that's sustainable based on an understanding as to the life of your assets and the condition that they're in at a particular point in time. So.
But also there could be future costs related to meeting whatever requirements are established, which are not necessarily currently in our plan. Right?
There could be. Yeah, we've allowed because a lot of councils already look at those metrics in terms of their network. So we're required. Well, there's no mandatory requirement, but most councils have an asset management plan for their Three Waters assets. So, and within those, you have sections that relate to whole of life cost, risk, asset condition, performance. So a lot of those metrics are already monitored, and we use those to drive renewals program. We use those to measure our maintenance budget to see that we're spending the right amount of money on the network. So we don't think there's significant capital cost potentially coming associated with these changes, but there will be more operational cost associated with monitoring and reporting, and we've allowed for some of that extra cost is in the budget already. So Te Mate Arawai was established 3 years ago, which is the economic regulator, and that came with it a whole lot of additional requirements around reporting and data. So we had already allowed for extra costs there, and so we've allowed for another shift in that level of reporting and absolutely condition assessment and understanding the performance of your network will be part of that. And so we've again allowed for some extra operational cost. It was in the modelling basically that Morrison Lowe did for the assessment.
Thank you.
Councillor Halliday.
Through you, Madam Chair, been frantically writing down. I didn't think this was all going to happen so quick. Seems to be nothing else in this process, seems to have. Look, I'll start off by just wanted to mention something about Martin's comment about this being a year in the making. From my perspective, it's actually been about 4 years in the making. We went through this with Labor, we're now going through this with National. In my opinion, this option is a common sense approach with regards to the alternatives. We're being legislated to make a decision, and it is very time pressured, so much so that we're having to make it while government is still bringing in legislation around it. But let's be clear, not making a decision will have serious consequence, and the government has already given every indication to that. In regards to our Kapiti situation, I'm happy with the information we have to make a decision. I also want to acknowledge the workload on officers over the past 4 years with regards to the government's approach to addressing the national infrastructure deficit in the water space. I've appreciated the workshops, briefings, and the answers to question after question after question. And we've needed to do that to we get our understandings in this space. And we wouldn't normally dig down so deep as we've had to dig down in an infrastructure space, but it's certainly been very much a learning experience, and I think very beneficial for us as elected members as well. It also needs to be acknowledged that we stand on the work done by previous elected members, mayors and officers, some, Sean, who are still here with us. Hang on, how old does that make you? No. That has allowed us to make this decision from a position of strength with regards to our own infrastructure position. So really this is the beginning of a new journey of how this is going to be managed. And I think we are in a good space to do that. So I guess a parting comment from me, which is not so much a positive, is that in my opinion, debt is not the only answer here. And that seems to be the government's solution to this. Dollars from government will also be required to reduce the infrastructure deficit. And my concern in this space is how the end user will potentially be looking to be used as a cash cow to pay for this infrastructure deficit, rather than it coming out of what is already, I think, assumed to be, should be being addressed from the current tax take that we have. To me, that's a critical part of this, and I still don't believe that that's an area that's been properly addressed. But we'll see with time how things go. This is certainly a positive step in heading in the right direction because, as we know, water moving into the future is going to be a very, very valued asset. It's going to become potentially a scarce resource. We hope we don't get to that stage, but there is a potential for that to happen. So we need to be proactive in our approach and how we manage that. So very happy to support this as an option, and the fact that it is being addressed at a national scale as well, I think is important. It's just going to be very interesting to see how that pathway develops as we move forward. So, yep, that's my bit. Thank you.
Do we have any further comments? Welcome, Councillor Cofford. Councillor Halliday, I'm really glad that you brought up the funding question because I endorse what you say, that it seems like providing greater debt headroom seems to be the solution to everything. And that hasn't been analysed in terms of intergenerational equity and the use of the assets. If you've got an infrastructure deficit, then why should future residents be paying for that? And I think that's a really important question. And so I'm really glad that you've raised that. Just in closing, I'd like to thank Jenny Rowan and her council for putting us in a position that we're able to make this decision today when they sorted out our water and put in water meters and everything else around that. And also our former Chief Executive, Pat Doherty, who was here at the time. And also Sean and your team and everybody who's been involved over many years to put us in a position where we're able to make this decision today. So we have recommendations A through G on page 7 of our agendas. I won't read them out because there's quite a lot. Basically, receiving the report, noting the timelines around the Water Services Delivery Plan, talking about the consultation that has been carried out and the findings of that, and resolves to retain an in-house business unit, option 1 in the consultation document as the proposed water service delivery model, and directs the Chief Executive to prepare and certify a water services delivery plan for council consideration, adoption and submission with the in-house business unit as the proposed water services delivery model. So that's been moved from the chair, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. Well done. And I'll now invite Kim Tahiwi to do a closing karakia for us, please.
Kia ora tātou. Me karakia tātou. Kia taunga manaakitanga ki runga i a tātou katoa. Kia hua ai te mā kihi e ki ana. Kia toi te kupu. Kia toi te reo. Kia toi te wairua. Kia tau te mauri. Ki roto i a mātou mahi katoa i tēnei rā. Haumi e, hui e, tā ki e.
Thank you, everybody. So I'm seeing if we can pull forward our 2 p.m.